This is directed by Brian Yuzna, who produced Re-Animator and From Beyond, and he directed movies like Bride of Re-Animator and Society, which I'm not going to say anything more about. I always say watch that movie without knowing anything about it.
I totally agree with what Jay said in that clip. You need to go into Society cold. Avoid as many spoilers as you can with regards to this film, and just buckle up for a pretty fun, wild horror romp. And don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to the day when Red Letter Media finally does do a review episode of this film. If anyone can kind of break down the surreal and bizarre and gross tone and characters, as well as provide a little bit more intricate background with regards to the actual production, it would be these guys. Especially with regards to Jay, because I feel Jeffrey Combs related films or Brian Yuzna productions are his home turf. So in the meantime, what do I do with a Guilty Pleasure Treasure episode? Because I really don't want to get into intricate plot points or get into the big reveals that take place throughout the movie. But I do want to be able to celebrate and compliment what really works well about this movie, so I can encourage you to go watch it on your own. I'm gonna give it a shot. First up, let's talk about the director, Brian Yuzna. You might associate his name with a couple of the projects that Jay mentioned earlier, the Re-Animator series, whether he was directing some of the sequels or was a producer on the original. Even in that episode of Best of the Worst that I pulled the clip from, they were going over a Brian Yuzna production, Faust. He has a track record for kind of churning out these B-movies, borderline non-B movies that delve more into the ideas of horror, practical effects, body horror, and in the case of Society, I feel having a very tongue-in-cheek and satirical edge to it, while still being able to revel in something disgusting. It doesn't hurt to employ effects work from Joe Gittani, aka Screaming Mad George. You might know his work from a couple of little indie features like, I don't know, Predator, Big Trouble in Little China, a couple of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Yeah, needless to say, he's not some novice practical effects guy. He is a full-fledged special effects guru at this point. So you have the effects work of Screaming Mad George mixed in with a script and vision established by Yuzna, who in this movie in particular has an eye set on both the spectacle but also on kind of addressing a little bit of snark aimed towards the upper echelon. There's a reason why the movie is called Society. Basic rundown of the plot without giving away any details or spoilers necessarily. It follows a teenager who's pretty well off with regards to his lifestyle and his family. Rich, privileged little snot named Bill, played by a guy named Billy Warlock. I think it should be kind of an obligation that a lot of horror films out there need to incorporate people with the last name Warlock into them more often. Billy Warlock, you might know if you'd ever seen a couple episodes from the first couple of seasons of Baywatch. And I will say, he is miles more appealing in this one movie than he was in his whole 3-season character arc. So it follows Bill as he's, reveling in the joy that is his life until such time as he starts to question, like, I don't quite feel like I belong with the upper crust, with this upper echelon of society, with my entitlement and, very well-off family. And then some things start to happen. Some paranoia starts to set in. Some very disturbing and trippy visuals start to take a lot of precedence in his mind. All of it ramping up for a big reveal that, oh boy, does it go places. But that's what I really love about the movie when I first saw it, is that I genuinely didn't gather what kind of focus this movie was going to go with. Whether it was going to go for a full out like, nope, the allegory is literal, or nah, let's go more maybe the American Psycho route. And I'm not going to give away which way it decides to go. All I can say is it's a fun journey finding out. And the movie knows that it's a fun journey throughout because it plays up a lot of the disturbing, a lot of the paranoia, and a lot of the unraveling of this character's life without giving the hand away too fast. In fact, a lot of the practical effects work is laced throughout the movie. It's not all just one big smorgasbord at one point in the film, as a lot of people like to kind of remember notoriously with regards to Society. There are some pretty trippy, surreal visuals laced throughout this story that really do play into the idea of, is this all in this kid's head? Is it just him having this ultimate identity crisis? Or is there's something more to this story. One of the earlier critics of this movie, back when it first was released in 1989, said it was something of an anti-Ferris Bueller. And I definitely see that now. It's following the wacky, irreverent adventures of this well-off kid, but not quite the same way as it was for good old Matthew Broderick. But if everything I've said up until this point is enough to kind of sell you on going into this movie with just that bare bones idea of what to expect, be forewarned, because it can go to some pretty squishy places, let's say. Again, not giving much away, but yeah, when you incorporate a lot of this practical effects work, don't expect it to pull punches. It gets visceral. It gets out there. And again, throughout a lot of this, you kind of are wondering, like, where does the reality end and sort of the madness begin? I feel the effects really serve that delicate balance well up until when the hand is revealed as to what's really happening. You will have your stomach turned at a few points throughout this movie, whether it's by some really convincing and thoroughly disturbing effects work, or whether it's by the idea of seeing some folks lathered up in Crisco that you really don't want to see lathered up in Crisco. I felt bad about even saying that. Go watch Society. It's a transformative experience, to be sure. I first became aware of this movie about a year and a half ago, when I was kind of just meandering through some lists of some much needed horror viewing. And at this point, I'd watched Re-Animator pretty religiously every Halloween for about 10 years. And then I stumbled upon Society. And man, I love Re-Animator. I like From Beyond. Society kind of blows both of them out of the water a little bit. It takes this concept of this Ferris Bueller-ish teen romp type premise and really turns it on several ears, to the point where by the time you reach the end of it, you even forget where you originated from, with regards to the tone, with regards to the story and the characters as they developed, and you're perfectly fine with that. It's really killing me not to be able to share some of the really icky and mind-bending stuff that takes place in this movie. A lot of your tertiary characters in this movie deserve kind of their own, like, 15-minute discussion and breakdown. But go watch it. Go enjoy it. But again, be forewarned, it is a very unsettling experience at first. It can be jarring. It can be towing the line with regards to what you would constitute as being good taste or not. But you know what? Lines are meant to be crossed, people. Cross that line. Cross the Society line. And just revel in some sheer visual and metaphorical and allegorical joy. I know I've been pretty nonsensical throughout this video, probably. I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I really don't want to ruin this for you. I'll be back next time with something maybe we can break down a little bit more with regards to details. Cheers to Society, folks.